You just heard this case could have major implications for immigration policy and constitutional law, while also making history with a sitting president attending arguments in person. Joining us now to break all of this down is Jordan Fischer, senior Supreme Court reporter for Bloomberg Law. Jordan, good morning to you. Good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, Marcella. It's good to be back.
You were obviously following these arguments very closely. I wonder what stood out to you most from the justices' questioning that we heard on both sides here.
Right. Well, we did hear a lot of skepticism from the conservative bench, particularly Chief Justice Roberts, Justices Gorsuch and Barrett. And the administration, of course, can't afford to lose more than one of them. What was interesting about their questions, and particularly about Solicitor General John Sauer's arguments, is that so much of it focused on the consequences of allowing birthright citizenship to continue. From the administration's perspective, they talk so much about, birth tourism, about incentivizing illegal immigration. And as Chief Justice Roberts pointed out, these weren't considerations at the time in the late 1800s when this amendment was drafted. And so how much does the court really have to consider those things when it looks at the constitutional question here?
Yeah, and I mean, as you just mentioned, even some of those conservative justices were skeptical. How significant is that for the potential outcome here?
I think it's very significant. It will probably be determinative. The expectation based on what we heard is that the court probably will strike down the executive order. That seems like the most likely outcome. Now, the question is, how are they going to do that? They have two off-ramps here. One, a somewhat narrow one. They could say that Congress codified this by law in the 1940s, and that's sort of the end of it. Or they can do what the ACLU would like them to do, which is to take a bigger swing and reaffirm the constitutional principle here and say that, yes, absolutely, unquestionably, the 14th Amendment guarantees birthright citizenship.
Yeah, really just such a complex issue. For viewers at home, I mean, explain what is really at stake when it comes to this case.
Right. Well, we did hear a bit of that in the arguments yesterday, with Justice Barrett asking, how would this work? How would it work going forward if the court were to strike down birthright citizenship? Would there have to be, would they pull in pregnant mothers for depositions? She asked. How would you verify a child's citizenship at the time of birth so that they could get, all of the things that you get, a social security number, things like that? And there's really no great answer. Solicitor General Sauer didn't have an amazing answer. And this potentially impacts tens of millions of people. The other question is, how retroactive would this be? The Trump administration is not asking for a retroactive ruling, but that is how constitutional questions work.
Yeah, we also saw something incredibly rare. President Trump sitting in the courtroom, something a sitting president has never done. What should we take away from him being there and his presence?
Right. Well, he was very upset with the court's tariff ruling earlier this year. Obviously, he had, at the time last year when arguments were held, talked quite a bit about attending. He said he felt a duty to do so. He ultimately decided not to. It may well be that he thought his presence could add more weight to the Solicitor General's arguments, could show how important it was to him. Perhaps he felt that had he attended tariffs arguments, it would have sent an important signal to the court. He did leave about halfway through arguments yesterday. He listened to Solicitor General Sauer argue, and then he left for another event at the White House.
And I want to ask you, what did you take away from his presence? What did he look like physically sitting behind his attorneys?
Right. He sat in the main public gallery. He was difficult to see from the media box, which is, for those who haven't been to the court, on the far left side and sort of hunched down. But I have been in court with him before. I of course, covered the election subversion cases when they were here, so it was not a first for me. But historic moment, regardless, for the president to attend oral arguments for the first time.
All right. And before we let you go, what are some possible ways that the court could rule here, and when can we expect a decision to come down on this?
Right. There's two primary off-roads here. One is a more narrow ruling, which is just to say that Congress codified birthright citizenship into law in the 40s, and that therefore, the president can't overrule a law with his pen. And then the bigger one, which is to go back and say that their ruling in this 1898 case called Wong Kim Ark was correct, that upheld birthright citizenship, as we understand it, to say that the 14th Amendment was intended to guarantee birthright citizenship for everyone born in this country with very limited exceptions. That's what the ACLU would like. That's what their allies who filed amicus briefs would like. And that is a bigger swing. It's unclear which way they will go. So we will see. We're expecting a ruling by the end of June, early July at the latest.
All right, Jordan Fischer, senior Supreme Court reporter for Bloomberg Law. Thanks so much for your time and input this morning. Great to see you.
Thanks, Marcella.